League's reinforcements arrived by jump ship in Strategic Turn 3. That kicked off the League's offensive, which has predominantly taken place near South Azure. In Strategic Turn 4, the League's forces had deployed their first binary to help establish a starport blockade on the city. Their hope was to open a second front at South Azure and draw forces from the Land Bridge region. But after the Battle of Willowham, the Chupacabra player reported to the League player, and I quote, "They're as thick as thieves here. You can't throw a rock without hitting someone from House Corbin." Land Bridge, without any doubt, is under control of House Corbin. However, House Corbin is still waiting on their reinforcements to arrive by jump ship, which is most likely in Strategic Turn 7. House Corbin knows this, and the League players know this too, so the League's window of opportunity is closing fast. It is now Strategic Turn 5. After the Battle of Willowham, both sides were spending a lot of their strategic actions on repairs. The blockade has been established, and the League has moved their first company from West Maplewood back to Somberburn. By holding that town, they controlled the logistics hub there, which prevents all resupply to South Azure for House Corbin, thus making all the repairs for their damaged mechs more expensive and time-consuming. So the League was at a major decision point. Time was running out. House Corbin holds Land Bridge with a solid defense, but the defenses at South Azure are surrounded by the League's ragtag forces in need of repairs. According to their plan, they should attack South Azure, but there was still a sizable force there, and enemy reinforcements are coming, and likely to go to Land Bridge region. Therefore, there are two questions on the League players' minds. Should they deploy the second binary to South Azure and try to take the city before House Corbin's reinforcements show up? Or keep the second binary in reserve in order to defend Land Bridge? But before we get into what the League had done, let's check in on House Corbin. After the Battle of Willowham, the players had realized that the Chupacabra's 5th company were her reserves, which begged to question, who is guarding this region of the planet? Then they began to dig deeper into their intel notes and realized the Chupacabra's 1st company was originally guarding the League's capital. Now they're sitting in Somberburn. So who is guarding their capital? And where is the second binary? Are they guarding the capital? At the onset of this war, House Corbin did not believe in aerodyne dropships. Their idea was to have mass forces and slow roll across the planet. However, with all the Chupacabra shenanigans, they realized the importance of aerodyne dropships and when their reinforcements have a few inbound. And since it seems League forces no longer have forces in this part of Blue Hole, then maybe it's time for some payback. But that is a potential operation for Strategic Turn 7, or maybe 8. First things first though, they wanted to secure the routes to South Azure to resupply the city. Now House Corbin knew that the League was burning through war chest points, and House Corbin was trying to do the exact opposite and bank up their war chest points so that when their reinforcements arrive, they could go on the offensive. But they were willing to spend some resources on securing Somberburn. They attacked with their combined arms company, which you may remember was once upon a time called the 2nd Mech Company, which had led the attack at the Battle of Tortel Valley. Well, it has been reorganized into the 2nd Combined Arms Company, but in name only, because reinforcements have not yet arrived. The 4th Lance, which only had an Atlas survive the Battle of Tortel Valley, has been plussed up with replacement mechs, but eventually the whole entire Lance will be switched out for a Fire Lance. But despite that, House Corbin is confident that the League doesn't know that, and the company will be enough to scare the Chupacabras out of Somberburn. So House Corbin attacked, but they were concerned that the Chupacabras would sabotage the logistics hub before retreating. But then the League did something that House Corbin did not expect. The second binary Starborn assaulted in behind the attackers on the route between Heavy Court and Somberburn, cutting the combined arms off from retreat, and help was too far away. They were surrounded. But on the bright side, they now know the location of the League's second binary. So the only viable option was to fight through the defenses of Somberburn and escape to Harkenforge. This is the Battle of Somberburn. Welcome to Somberburn. It is the only logistics hub that feeds into the South Azure Peninsula, making it strategically important to both sides. The town is located at the northern reach of the Azure grasslands and on the doorstep of the southern approaches of the Elkin Mountains. Residential buildings in this region have a construction factor of 1, and the commercial and industrial buildings, as well as the overpasses, have a construction factor of 4. There are 4 buildings essential to the operation of the logistics hub: the communications array with a construction factor of 4, and the 3 towers, each with a construction factor of 1. Defending this town is the Chupacabra's 1st Mech Company, which has seen quite a lot of action during this phase of the war with the 2 battles of Mesa Walk. The company is comprised of a heavy battle lance, which has a gargoyle, stalker, annihilator, and a night star. The gargoyle has 1 armor point missing due to damage from a previous battle. The second lance is a medium battle lance comprised of 2 grasshoppers and 2 centurions. The centurions are still banged up from a previous fight. The blue one has 3 armor points damaged, and the red doesn't have any armor left, just 2 structure points and critical damage to its fire control. The third lance is a light battle lance, which is half strength since the Blackjack and Dasher were destroyed in the previous battle. The remaining 2 mechs are a Wasp and a Panther, which has no armor since it was damaged from a previous battle. House Corbin is attacking with the 2nd Combined Arms Company. It has a heavy battle lance comprised of an Atlas, a Warhammer, a Blackjack, and a Wasp. The 4th lance was originally a heavy battle lance, but because the Warhammer, Wasp, and Blackjack were all destroyed at the Battle of Tortel Valley, that left just the Atlas, which was plussed up with a Crusader and 2 riflemen. Most of the mech warriors have more experience from their previous battles and are now considered regular, except the Crusader and the 2 riflemen, which are considered recruits. The last lance of this company is a lance of wheeled scouts, which also has gained more experience, but they are still green. Deploying on turn 3 is the 2nd binary of the Alyina Mercantile League. It is comprised of 2 stars. The first battle star has a Hunchback 2C, Marauder 2C, a Stone Rhino, a Supernova, and a Warhammer 2C. The second battle star has a Huntsman Prime, Ebon Jaguar Crossbow Prime, a Kingfisher Prime, and a Turkina Prime. Now, one thing to note, despite these being clan stars, we made the choice that the mech warriors were regulars due to the backstory of the Alyina Mercantile League, which is a good read and you can check out in Tamar Rising. House Corbin attacked thinking this battle would be an easy mop-up operation, and is now turned into a fight for survival. House Corbin will deploy on this side of the map, while the Chupacabras will deploy in the town. House Corbin can either sprint across the map and escape to the far edge, or try to take out a few logistics buildings while escaping. Either way, they know they cannot stay and fight a mercenary mech company as well as a League clan binary all at once, so they will need to escape. On turn 3, the League binary will begin to deploy on the same edge as House Corbin's deployment. House Corbin is caught in a pincer movement. Will they escape, get captured, or worse, destroyed? Let's get into it. Actually, before we get into the fighting, we would like to quickly thank all the Patreons for their support, especially to our notable nobles, Ron W., Christopher K., Alex, and Jerome C. Thank you for your continued support to help make these battle reports possible. House Corbin wins the initiative. The Chupacabras will move and shoot first. The Chupacabra player activates her heavy lance, which was quartering in these industrial buildings. The Annihilator kicks the car out of its way as it ground moves. The Gargoyle ground moves to cover, and the Stalker and Night Star ground move towards the center of the map to prepare for the approaching enemy forces. House Corbin wants to put as much distance as possible between themselves and the approaching clan mechs, but they also want to lay down a base of fire too. House Corbin activates his 5th lance. Wasp, Blackjack, and Warhammer move into cover of the woods, with line of sight on the Chupacabra's heavy mechs. The Atlas sprints on the map in order to keep up with his lance. Realizing that House Corbin might be stacking their forces in the north sector of the map, the Chupacabra player activates her 2nd lance. Leaving their cozy garrison in the commandeered housing, the Grasshoppers and Centurions leave the neighborhood and sprint down the hill into the industrial park. House Corbin activates their Lance of Scouts and decides to cover as much distance as possible and sprints down the road to the base of the hill, breaking line of sight from the Chupacabra's heavy lance on top of the hill. The half-strength light battle lance was garrisoned in this nice resort, but they don't have effective fire at long range, so they stand still, and I guess order themselves another drink. House Corbin activates their last lance, which is comprised of mainly reserves, who grumbles about not signing up for this. Insert your favorite expletive. The lance sprints into cover. On to the shooting phase. The Chupacabras will shoot first. The Chupacabra's heavy lance was the only lance with range and ability to engage targets. The Night Star, Annihilator, and Gargoyle take aim at the Crusader, leading the mad dash across the map. Due to range, cover, and some intervening woods, the target number was an 11. They all missed, and with such a rotten target number, they decided not to use any of their lucky points. Next, the Stalker turned its missile silos and fired at the Blackjack. The target number was a 10, and it missed. House Corbin can now return fire. Only 3 mechs didn't sprint this turn, so those are the only mechs that can fire back at the Chupacabras, and they all take aim at the Stalker. The target number was an 11, and they also all missed. This brings turn 1 to a close. House Corbin is sprinting along the northern sector of the town, both sides exchanging ineffective fire at long range. Here we are in turn 2. The clan mechs of the League will arrive next turn. The Chupacabras won the initiative, so House Corbin will move and shoot first. House Corbin activates their 5th lance, and the Wasp jumps forward to increase its TMM. The Blackjack and Warhammer ground move, and the Atlas continues to sprint to keep up with his lance. The Chupacabras activate their heavy battle lance and move to the northern boundary of the industrial park with a commanding view of the battle map's northern sector. House Corbin had originally planned to send their scout lance sprinting straight through town, hoping no one would pay any attention to them. You know, don't mind me, I'm just passing through. But ultimately he decided against it and moved his lance off the road and cut a path along the base of the hill. Next, the Chupacabras activate their medium battle lance. The Grasshoppers ground move to the crest of the hill, above the scouts, and the Centurions ground move into the industrial complex. Realizing that he can't sprint any further, he will need to ground move and shoot back, so he ground moves his reserves forward. The Chupacabras activate their half-strength lance, which now has a line of sight of the approaching scouts, so they stand still in order to have better shooting. This brings us to the shooting phase. House Corbin will shoot first. The Chupacabra player has blundered. Her Red Centurion maneuvered into a good shooting position, but left it completely exposed to the scouts, who all fire at medium range. The target number was a 7, however, only 1 scout hit, dealing 1 structure damage, which led to the critical hit, destroying a weapon. House Corbin wanted to destroy at least 1 mech, so he had one of his riflemen target the Red Centurion, while the rest of the lance shot at the Grasshopper. For the lone rifleman, the target number was a 10 due to his poor mech warrior skills, and it missed. For the rest of the lance, the target number was a 9, also because of the lack of training. But it was a 7 for the Atlas, since he knew what he was doing. They all missed except the Atlas, who dealt 5 damage to the Grasshopper's armor. The heavy lance also fired at the red Grasshopper, with target numbers ranging from a 7 to 9 due to the range and jumping. The Warhammer and Wasp hit, dealing 6 more damage, which caused 2 critical checks, which was a 5 and 11, no critical hit, and an engine hit. Wow, House Corbin nearly took out 2 mechs, but it's time for the Chupacabras to shoot back. The Red Centurion as well as the half-strength lance take aim at the scouts. Target number was a 12 for the Red Centurion since his fire control was destroyed at the last battle, and he misses. The half-strength target number for the scouts was a 9 since they stood still, and they both hit, destroying the scout. Next, the 2 Grasshoppers take aim at one of the riflemen. Target number is a 7. Using a lucky point, they both hit, dealing 6 damage, which required a critical roll, and it was a 10, damaging its fire control. Next, the Stalker and Gargoyle try to take down a rifleman. Target number is a 7. And despite using a lucky point, the Gargoyle misses, but the Stalker hits, dealing 6 damage and a critical hit to the rifleman's movement. The Annihilator and Nightstar shoot at the Crusader. For the Annihilator, the target number is a 7, and it's a 9 for the long range of the Nightstar. The Annihilator hit, dealing 4 damage to the Crusader's armor. And that brings turn 2 to a close. Both sides have severely damaged mechs, and a scout was destroyed. Next turn, the clan mechs will arrive. Can House Corbin escape, or at least take some of the League forces down with him? Here we are in turn 3. House Corbin won initiative, so the Chupacabras will move and shoot first. The League forces are still logistically cut off from their own forces, so they don't want to sustain more damage than necessary, nor can they afford to lose any mechs. So the badly damaged Grasshopper and Centurion break contact with the enemy, and the rest of the lance takes cover behind the comms relay station. House Corbin continues to advance his 5th heavy battle lance, but knowing the clan mechs will show up this turn, he pushes his mechs into a little bit of cover. With the arrival of the clan mechs this turn, the Chupacabras must do proportional movement, and move 2 lances. First, the half-strength lance stands still again, and the second star of the second binary advances onto the battlefield. This is when House Corbin players decided that running is pointless. There is no hope of escape. The only option is to turn and fight and take down as many mechs as possible. He started by sending his scouts charging up the hill to hunt down the damaged Centaurian and Grasshopper. The League forces still needed to do proportional movement, and they began tightening the noose on House Corbin. The heavy lance advanced into cover, and the first star of the second binary stomped through the woods and onto the battlefield. House Corbin's reserves put their back to the wall, using the building as cover from the clan mechs and squaring off against the Chupacabras, and now onto the shooting phase. And it was a bloodbath. The League forces opened up their shooting with the first star all targeting the Red Atlas. The target number was an 8. The Hunchback, Warhammer, Stone Rhino, and the Supernova all hit, dealing a total of 20 damage, which was enough to outright destroy the Atlas, but it will still be able to return fire this turn. The second star targeted the other Atlas with a target number of 8 as well. They all hit, except for the crossbow, which dealt a total of 19 damage, which was enough to take the mech down. Medium Lance and the Annihilator still had the scouts in their forward arc, so they turned their guns on the scouts. Under all that withering firepower, all 3 scouts were hit, but only 1 survived. However, all the scouts will be able to shoot back this turn. The rest of the Chupacabras divided their fire against the 2 riflemen, and surprisingly, 1 survived without being hit even once, despite the Chupacabras using lucky, but the other one, not so lucky. House Corbin didn't shoot back. The scouts fired at the severely damaged Grasshopper and were able to take it down. House Corbin's 5th Heavy Battle Lance also still had the clan crossbow in their forward arc, and they poured their fire into it. And using their lucky points, they all hit, dealing 13 damage, destroying the crossbow. The rest of House Corbin's forces fire on the Stalker, but all the shooting missed. That brings turn 3 to a close. House Corbin lost 3 mechs and 2 scouts, but was able to take down a clan mech in the firefight. On to turn 4. At the beginning of turn 4, I asked the House Corbin player to roll to see if any of his units would surrender. The scout and the surviving recruits of the reserve lance surrendered. For the 5th Heavy Battle Lance, the Blackjack surrendered, but the Wasp and the Warhammer stayed in the fight. The Warhammer sprinted and had enough movement to clear the top of the overpass. The Wasp ground moved to the other side of the river. The Chupacabras continued their pursuit, closing in on the remaining forces that were trying to escape. The Heavy Lance began to ground move out of the industrial park, and the half-strength Lance moved in behind the woods to take shots at the fleeing forces of House Corbin. During the shooting, the Warhammer was brought down, and the 2 Wasps and the Panther exchanged fire with no effect. In turn 5, the Chupacabras continued to pursue the Wasp, which had jumped to keep its TMM up. If it can survive this turn's shooting, it might actually escape. In a desperate measure to try to prevent the Wasp's escape, Panther and Wasp moved into close range by jumping in the rear arc of the Wasp. During the shooting, the Gargoyle had a target number of 9, and despite lucky points, missed every shot. The Panther and Wasp had a target number of 7, and despite using lucky points, the Panther missed, but the Wasp hit, dealing 2 damage and stripping the armor off the Wasp. So in the end, the Wasp escaped. The Chupacabra player broke off the pursuit. She said, the Wasp needs to escape so we can go back and tell his friends what happened here today. So the League forces were victorious and dealt a Frigid Cape level defeat to House Corbin. It's unfortunate. House Corbin was trying to sweep away a ragtag Chupacabra force that it thought would be an easy win, but in the end, the hunter became the prey. House Corbin lost 4 mechs and 3 scouts. 3 mechs and 1 scout was captured, and 1 mech with no armor left barely escaped. The League forces lost 2 mechs, one of which was a clan mech, and as the players for House Corbin put it, 1 down, 19 more to go. But unfortunately, House Corbin's supply route to South Azure remains severed and under the control by League forces. The defense forces of South Azure are still logistically isolated, but then so are the League's forces. We'll have to wait and see how this battle will impact the war on Blue Hole. I hope you enjoyed this battle report. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the next battle.